Jessie Jane Duff, do you identify as a feminist?
Well, I'm not quite sure what a feminist means, because it seems that the Women's March was proclaiming to be feminist, but yet they aren't recognizing the accomplishments by Donald Trump. We have 3.7 rate of unemployment for women, which is the lowest in 17 years. Close to 700,000 women entered the workforce for the got new jobs since 2017, and close to 600,000 got into the workforce for the first time. His accomplishments for women outdo all the name calling and all of the brash language that they use to describe this man. If they would look at the data, they would see that he's been very successful for women.
Do they outdo his own record on how he treats women, the language that he's used about women, the allegations that have been made against him by women? There's, on the one hand, there's the economic argument. On the other, there is the respect and treatment argument.
Okay, well, let's look at this very fairly. There's a lot of U.S. presidents that had horrible records towards women, but yet were praised by the left, such as President Bill Clinton. All these women who supported his wife never recognized that she had admonished and treated the victims that he had been accused by as if they were.
I totally
of course
accept,
she didn't,
I totally
but let's be
accept
fair
the
on this.
criticism of previous presidents, but we're talking about the current president.
Exactly. Well, let's look at, but then let's be fair about it, because the left has gone after this man harder than they ever did with LBJ, who was known for civil rights, and President Clinton. We have to be fair, and they have never been fair. They have always gone after those that are on the right.
Well, I think actions speak louder than words, really. You know, much more important than whether or not he says he's a feminist is what he says and does in relation to women. He's called women fat pigs, dogs, slobs. He suggested that they can't do their jobs when they're on their period. He's boasted about being able to grab them by the word I probably can't say on breakfast TV, you know, a form of sexual assault. We have a man in the White House who's boasted about being able to commit sexual assault with impunity. 20 women have come forward with allegations of harassment and assault.
He said, as we know, he put it down to just locker room talk. That was his excuse. It was 15, 16 years ago, long before he ever considered running for office. And he said to me that he has evolved as a man. He admitted that, right? Is he allowed to change? And if you come into public office, should you be judged more on your behaviour from that moment? And in relation to that, has his treatment of women as president failed anybody?
Well, let's look at what he's done as president then. You know, let's move away from the things he said and think about what he's done. One of his very first executive orders was to reinstate the global gag rule, which is going to have an enormous impact on access to healthcare for millions of women around the world, likely resulting in enormous maternal death. He talked about repealing Planned Parenthood funding. He talked about overturning Roe versus Wade during his race for president. You know, it's all very well to say, oh, these are things from the past, but during the time he was becoming, you know, in the race for president.
And yet, in his interview, he said he won with many categories of women, and that is undeniable. 52% of white women who voted for Donald Trump. In the section of white women with no college education, 61%.
And those job numbers are right. I mean, there are, you know, it's a 17-year high for women in employment.
Yeah, that's the thing. I believe very much about women coming forward and expressing themselves, telling their story. But it's whenever
you did that yourself. It takes enormous courage.
Yes, it does. And the shame of I think a lot of it is when it is whether it's someone touching you or sexually assaulting you and putting and giving you drugs. To not give you the opportunity to make a decision for yourself. It's just a very broad umbrella, and it's very difficult, I think, for those serious crimes to be taken seriously when a lot of the time women are coming forward about someone just looking at them or touching them.
Would Rod say he's a feminist? He loves women. We know that.
Absolutely loves women, and I think he would love women to be in the place where they deserve to be. He's always encouraged me to do the best I can do. So
Laura, a lot of women struggle with defining feminism because I think it is a very individual thing. Well, Jess Phillips has said this morning it's about taking back control. Lots of men don't want to define themselves as feminists because they see it as women taking back control from men. Other women define it as sharing control.
I think there's a lot of feigned confusion here about something that's very simple. Anybody can go and look up the word feminism in the dictionary. You don't have to take my word for it. This is structural and systemic, and to be a feminist means believing that people should be treated equally regardless of their sex, that men and women
But the crucial thing there is equality.
Absolutely.
What I think some men are getting a bit concerned about, when you see these award ceremonies now, there was one last week where it was entirely female presenters, for example.
Golden Globes.
Right? Is that a good thing? That's not about equality. That is about what Jess Phillips says. It's about taking control, where you basically eliminate men. I don't understand why women would want that.
It's fascinating that there's this anxiety. There has been one lineup of all women. We see all male lineups everywhere, constantly, all the time. Look at any given panel show, any debate,
President's
any
Club,
kind of, and there's been one all-women lineup.
1, 2, 3, 4,
and suddenly
5
you're
of us.
panicking that things are going too far.
There are 5 people at this desk, and I'm the only man.
Which just goes to show it's not going too far.
The same is true, actually, with women speaking about harassment and assault. You know, we know that 85,000 women are raped in the UK, 400,000 sexually assaulted every year, 2 women killed every week by a current or former partner. Some women now coming forward with their experiences, and everybody's going, oh my God, we mustn't take this too far. You know, no one is conflating these things.
I don't think it's that. I think it's some people now think they can put anything online, and that is seen as not their truth, but the truth. There's no judge and jury, there's no trial, there's no due process. And I think people are worried about that.
Stories online, but women aren't going, we want this to be the way that things are carried out. Women want due process. Women want good workplace sexual harassment policies. Often they don't exist.